Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Undersecretary of Education, Ted Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is great for us to be here. My name is Ted Mitchell. I'm the Undersecretary of Education at the U.S. Department of Education. And I really appreciate the invitation to be with you today. It's a terrific day outside, an even better one inside. You know, I'm a policy guy. I spent a lot of my time doing policy. I was also a college president. Most importantly, I'm a dad. And so I share the passion, commitment, and focus that the President and Vice President Biden have brought to this issue that joins us all today. It's on Us is a movement that's about all of us doing our part to prevent sexual assault. Launched in 2014, It's on Us has engaged more than 500 college campuses and hundreds of thousands of individuals around the country, particularly students, who are taking the pledge to stand up and empower change on their campuses and in our communities. It's impressive to see so many students stepping forward to take ownership of a complex and challenging issue. But through your actions, you are helping to create a culture that emphasizes healthy relationships and an open environment where survivors feel like they can come forward and get the support they need. You are also reinforcing values that are at the core of what Pitt is about and what this country is about: dignity and respect for the equality of every person. And because we know the devastating impact sexual assault can have on students' ability to learn and to thrive, you're playing a key role in shaping campuses where all students can succeed. My colleagues and I at the Department of Education believe that we too must do all we can to ensure that barriers to completing a college degree are eliminated. Preventing sexual assault is a critical part of that mission. Through the department's work with the White House Task Force to protect students from sexual assault, with our partners across this administration in the higher education, and with you, we're looking forward to continuing this call to action through the It's on Us campaigns and other vehicles. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speakers. Governor Tom Wolf, who in January launched the It's on Us Pennsylvania movement. Yep. The first statewide campaign of its kind. Matt McGorry, who some of you may have seen. Indeed, do that again. There we go. And your student body president, Nazreen Haroon. Please welcome Governor Wolf.
I take it that wasn't for me? Listen, I am very pleased to be here. And let me just do a shout out to Vice President Joe Biden. He's going to be here in just a minute. Where's the... You know, he represented as a U.S. Senator for so many distinguished years the state of Delaware. But he was born in Pennsylvania. He's a native son, so when he comes on, I want you to give him a warm Pennsylvania welcome back home. So, and then you're also going to hear from a few other people here. But let me just say, I am really proud to be part of this It's on Us campaign. This is the week of action. And Pennsylvania, as the Undersecretary said, was the first state to adopt this and to participate in this. This initiative has three goals. You'll be hearing, I know you've already heard about this, but the first thing is to improve awareness, prevention, and reporting and response systems in the Commonwealth. The second thing is to remove or at least reduce barriers that prevent survivors from reporting sexual assault. And third, to demonstrate that we are all committed at every level in Pennsylvania to the task of eradicating this scourge from every part of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you. Now, this campaign is really, really important. We need to treat sexual assault in our schools and colleges as the serious problem it truly is. We need to agree that we are not going to put up with this any longer. That's because sexual assault has a corrosive effect on all of us. It obviously affects its survivors. It affects the friends, colleagues, and family members of the survivor. It affects all of us, and it happens a lot. Sexual violence is unfortunately pervasive in our society. It affects an estimated 1 in 5 college women. Nearly 20% of young women between the ages of 14 and 17 are sexually assaulted, mostly by someone the survivor knows and trusts, a classmate, a supposed friend, a relative, or even a family member. And the impact is serious and widespread. First of all, sexual assault, wherever it occurs, clearly imposes a huge burden on its survivors, obviously. The individual consequences are clear. Survivors are more likely to experience immediate as well as long-term health consequences. Issues like post-traumatic stress syndrome, 94%. 75% suffer from depression. 35 to 50% have suicidal tendencies. Survivors are more likely than their peers to abuse alcohol. They are more likely to drop out of school. They are more likely to have a lower GPA in college, all of which leads to an average reduction in lifetime income of over $240,000. That is $15.1 billion cost for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania over the lives of these survivors. So there are clear costs to the survivors of sexual assault, but there are also clear costs to those living and studying around them. When someone else is sexually assaulted, it reflects and often reinforces a number of negative forces. It promotes a culture of unfairness and discrimination. It feeds on the pernicious idea that some people have clearer rights than others, that some are more equal than others. It builds an environment of fear among the community of friends, acquaintances, and neighbors who know of the survivor's ordeal. And this inhibits and it restricts freedom of action on the part of the entire community. Sexual assault places a barrier between people who have become concerned about the possibility of sexual assault and those with whom they might otherwise interact freely. It dampens the open exchange of everything from ideas to feelings. Finally, sexual assault reduces the quality of life for all of us. Safety is a fundamental civil right, and sexual assault is a clear violation of that civil right. And when that violation occurs for any member of the community, it occurs for every member of the community. It violates the right of everyone to a safe society. A society in which sexual assault is a big problem is a society in which the core values we claim to hold dear, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, are nothing more than empty words. We need to end sexual assault. To this end, I've directed my administration here in Pennsylvania to address this problem over the course of the next year. We have great partners in this effort. We're in one right now. Over 200 colleges, universities, and school districts in Pennsylvania have signed the pledge right now to join the It's Up to Us campaign. That's a great thing. Since January, over 400 people have taken the pledge in Pennsylvania, and the hope is that many more will continue to join us. We also have a network of 50 rape crisis centers across the state ready and willing to work with our schools, colleges, and universities. I am determined to make Pennsylvania a shining example to the rest of the world as to what committed citizens can do to make our world better. It's truly on us to accomplish this. Let's keep working. Thank you very much. Now, I know the great greeting you gave me was not for me. So I would like to introduce the person you really meant to give a shout out to, and I'm very proud to turn the podium over to Matt McGorry. Matt, of course. Just let me finish here, will you? Matt is an actor. He's best known for his role in Orange is the New Black, right? But he's also an ardent champion of the civil rights of all Americans, to what I said was a fundamental civil right, the right to a safe life. So please welcome, give a great Pennsylvania shout out to Matt McGorry.
I actually just came to see you, but thanks, guys. Hi, Pitt. Wow. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. In fact, my 30th birthday is next Tuesday, and I already know that this is going to be the highlight of my month. While I may feel a lot older than you, I'm actually not. And I'm here today because I wish that when I was your age, there had been an event like this, with the Vice President of the United States, that gave me the opportunity to change in ways that I never knew could be so necessary and fulfilling. It was only a year ago that I really started to examine my life through a different lens. You know, it's very easy for us, as it was for me, to only see life through our own perspectives, particularly when it comes to gender. If you're a guy, more often than not, you've grown up in a society where sexism is pervasive and deeply entrenched in your life. But because it doesn't affect you in the way that it does your female counterparts, it's easy to not see it or to believe that it's more rare than it actually is. In fact, it wasn't until I went out of my way to talk to the women in my life about issues of sexism, misogyny, and sexual violence that the many disparities truly hit me. In order to try and understand even the slightest bit of what so many women go through, I tried imagining how it would feel to be approached aggressively by a man 60 pounds heavier and 5 inches taller than me. I tried to imagine how it would feel to be touched in a way that I didn't want to by someone who I stood no chance of defending myself against, while others looked the other way. As a man, I've never had to schedule a first date in public just in case he ended up trying to assault me. I've never had to think twice about what outfit I wore for fear that it might attract unwanted attention from other men. And I've never had to worry that choosing to sleep with someone would lead to me being called a slut, either by that person or the people that they chose to tell about that encounter. Or that the number of people I've slept with would negatively affect how people perceive me, or judge my character, or my worth. And here's something else for you guys to consider. 1 in 5 women on college campuses will be sexually assaulted. These crimes are hugely compounded by shame, fear, self-blame, thoughts of suicide, feelings that survivors are forced to address even before working up the tremendous courage, should they choose to report these crimes. So how can we, as men, help to evolve our current culture into one of consent and one that supports survivors? What if we offered survivors acceptance, love, and a belief in them? What if we didn't judge them, question how much they drank, or ask what they were wearing? That's why events like these are so important, because we must create this cultural shift by requiring the discomfort of looking inward and identifying how we are contributing to the problem. It won't be easy. The discomfort of looking outward and confronting our friends, fraternity brothers, classmates, teammates, will be among some of the most challenging and difficult conversations of our lives. But it is on us. Since becoming an advocate for gender equality, so many women in my life have come forward to tell me their experiences with sexism, sexual harassment, and rape. Women who I've known for years that have stayed quiet because they know that many men in their lives won't listen without judgment and try to understand what they've been through. And these women have now stepped forward. To all the survivors here today, whatever your gender, your courage inspires me. Whether you've been able to speak about your experiences or not, you're not alone. We will do better. We must do better. I love you, I believe you, and I stand with you. And no matter what, it is never your fault. So guys, it's time to step up. It is not a woman's responsibility not to get raped or assaulted. It is a man's responsibility not to rape or assault. And it is all of our responsibilities to make sure that the men in our lives know that we are committed to changing the culture that allows these atrocities to persist. It is time that we are no longer only our brother's keepers, that we are our sister's keepers too. It is up to all of us. I cannot thank you all enough for being here. It is my honor to introduce someone that you all know and someone I have gotten to know, your student body president, Nazreen Haroun.
It's on us. The three words that have sparked a movement here at the University of Pittsburgh and at college campuses all over the country. Why? Because college is supposed to shape our lives so that we can succeed in the real world. And sexual assault from fellow students, inaction from administrators, none of that has any part in this plan. Pitt is working to eradicate this issue in many ways, but the work is not done until the number of assaults and rapes that occur on campus is 0. That's why we've been encouraging everyone to take the It's On Us pledge at itsonus.org. When you do, you're pledging to always obtain consent. You're pledging to stop blaming victims, and you're pledging to take action, because that's what it means to be a Pitt Panther. And that's what it means to be a friend, a partner, a classmate, teammate, fraternity brother, sorority sister. That's what it means to be someone who will step up and step in to do the right thing. That's what today is all about, to show not only our distinguished guests who are here with us today, but to show each other that victims are supported, perpetrators are held accountable, and that we have each other's backs. I can't think of anyone who has done more to support us, challenge us, and inspire us to do more and to do better than our next speaker has. A Pennsylvania native from Scranton and former senator from next door in Delaware for 36 years, he has given his entire career to protecting men and women from sexual violence, gay, straight, from every race and background. He has consistently been a supporter to all survivors who know that he will always be there for them. That's his character, which the country has been lucky to have leading us over the last 7 years in the White House, shown not only through his empowering rhetoric, but more importantly, shown through his meaningful actions. On behalf of the University of Pittsburgh and its entire community, it is my honor to introduce the Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Excuse my back. I apologize. Well, hello, Pitt. Now, people have a lot of reasons to like Pitt. I got to tell you straight up why I've liked Pitt so much, and when you're not in any competition with, how you doing, man? Any competition with my two alma maters, Syracuse and Delaware, I root for you. And the reason I did, I was a pretty good high school football player, but only 2 major universities took a look at me to play football. University of Maryland and Pitt. And I've thought you've been so smart my whole career since then. What a great university, and I mean that sincerely. Chancellor, thank you very much. And Governor Wolf, Tom, you've always, in business as well as in public life, you have always made sure that your values led. And on this issue, it's not new to you. This is not new to you, and I appreciate it very, very much. And to Ted Mitchell, the Undersecretary, and to Nazreen, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. I'm here at the invitation of Matt McGorry. Matt flew out with me. I told him I know the orange is the new black, except tonight. Syracuse plays Connecticut. It's still orange. I just want you to know, Mary Esther, how are you? See that woman there? I love her. That's Mary Esther. And she's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. She only has one serious drawback. She thought I should be president. And that really is, that makes her question her judgment. But it's great to see you. I see so many friends here. I'm also here, a guy who rode out with me is a guy who also puts his principles on display, and that's the President of the United Steelworkers, a great, great friend of mine who's come along and is fully supportive of this effort, along with many others. Look, folks, it's great to be back in Pennsylvania. I was born in Scranton, or as they say in Scranton, I was born in Scranton. And I love coming back to Pittsburgh, as I've been here, as Laser knows, many, many times. This is a city that built the nation on the back of the United Steelworkers and all the folks out of this great, great part of the valley that has really built the country. And it's amazing, Governor, and to see how Pittsburgh has come back, There's no quit in Pittsburgh, none. And I've been here many, many times. And by the way, Chancellor, it's not just that I think you're a great athletic institution. You're also one of the top public research universities in the nation, quite frankly, in the world. Leading the way in medical research, nanotechnology, engineering, and so many other fields. And again, Tom, thank you for being here with me. I know you have a lot to do, but I know how much this issue means to you as well. Folks, I'm really happy that Matt's with me here. Because Matt, although Matt is celebrity, he is using his celebrity, not the incredible talent he has to entertain us all and to bring such joy to so many people's lives, but he really cares about these issues. Every single thing he's been engaged in has been about equity, it's been about equality, it's been about civil rights. No, I really mean it. I really mean it. He's about to turn 30. I wish I had been as successful as 30 as he was. I got elected to the Senate when I was 29, but it wasn't like what he's doing. No one knew who the hell I was outside of my state. Guys, and particularly you women, every one of your parents, when they dropped you off on the first day of class or put you on a plane or a train and kissed you goodbye, they had great expectations for you. But along with those expectations for real was a nagging fear. Will you be all right? Not just will you be all right in terms of your grades, are you going to be okay? They may not have known the statistics, but they know when they dropped you off that you'd think the last place you'd have to worry about dropping your beautiful son or daughter off would be on a college campus. Should be the safest place in the world. And the fact of the matter is that fear is real. And for too many parents, that fear has been realized or will be realized. You know, when I wrote the Violence Against Women Act back in 1989 when I drafted it, and I literally drafted it. I mean, it's not because there wasn't much of a support at the time. As a matter of fact, not a single national women's organization, all of whom support me, not a single one supported the legislation at the outset because of two reasons. One, they thought that it would take away from other issues more pressing, choice, gender equality, equal pay. And I think people, although they cared about it, thought maybe there's not much we can do about it. I think that was the underlying subconscious feeling. And the fact is that we finally, after all of a whole range of hearings and a lot of time, we finally got support. I remember I called a meeting of all the women's and civil rights organizations in my office. I was chairman of a thing called the Judiciary Committee, and I was still pushing, and there were objections being offered on the margins. Well, you didn't want to increase the penalties for rape. You didn't want to do. And finally, Ellie Schmiel, who I love and is a friend of mine, was head of the National Organization for Women, said, literally, not a joke, she said, "What are we doing? Why don't we support this guy? Why don't we support this guy?" And everything began to change. Everything began to change. Even then, though, in the beginning, the opposition came mostly from conservative quarters, socially conservative quarters. Domestic violence was considered, not a joke, a private matter. Everybody knew it went on, but it's a family matter. It's a private matter. The fact of the matter is, in my legislation, I had a lot of money for shelters for women when they get a stay away order, to be able to take them out of their home and have a place to go and their children. The right referred to them as Biden's indoctrination centers. As my wife, who's a college professor, will tell you, you doubt me, Google it. Google it. The fact of the matter is that's how they were referred to, as indoctrination centers. The legal system and the court of public opinion was still allowed prosecutors to ask victims of rape, what were you wearing? Did you have a bra? This is not a joke. This is deadly freaking earnest, man. What difference does it make what a woman was wearing? But still, today, the question you get asked, were you drinking? What did you say? Why did you offend him? These are questions that angered me then and anger me now. No one, particularly a court of law, has a right to ask any of those questions. And everyone wanted to be engaged in plausible deniability. I didn't see it. I know what's going on, but it's a private matter. Buried deep in our psyche as a culture is the idea, if it wasn't stranger rape, somehow the woman must have done something to provoke this. In the middle of this, there was a judge in Florida when I was writing this legislation. A woman walked into a bar with a very short skirt, and she was wearing no underwear. She sat at the bar, she was brutally raped, and the judge actually said she asked for it. That's when we changed the federal law. Good people knew what was going on, but they didn't want to get involved. It's complicated, and it is complicated sometimes. I don't know how many times I'd speak when I was trying to get this passed to men's groups, to Rotary clubs, and all those kinds of clubs. They're good. They're good up. Chambers of commerce kinds of things. And the question I was most often got back then? Well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't she say something? And I'd always ask the men in the audience, I'll ask it here, particularly the older guys closer to my age, ask the press. Anybody ever seen the movie Deliverance? What's the one scene all you guys remember?
Squeal like a pig.
You got it, man. You got it. A guy gets tied to a tree in the woods and gets raped from behind by, quote, several, as was characterized in the movie, hillbillies. I said, if that happened to you, would you come out and report it? No, I'd go get my gun. I'd come back. I'd take care of it. Why wouldn't you report it? Because you'd be ashamed. You'd be ashamed. Why do women not report it? You know, one of the first things we changed in the law was the ability of police officers to arrest on information. That's a fancy phrase for saying the following. If I was standing on the corner when we left here, not as vice president, as Joe Biden, and somebody walked up and smacked me, police officers see it, they'd arrest. But if it was a woman who got smacked by a man, the cop would come up and say, do you want to bring charges? You're standing there and you're 5'3", 107 pounds. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. You know damn well if you bring charges, he's going to get out soon and come back. How many men would bring charges? So we had this double standard, man, that existed. But I was convinced, and it still exists in some areas, I was convinced if we pulled back this mask on this epidemic, that decent people would come forward and support our efforts when they could no longer deny it was happening. I'm always asked why, for the last 25 years, why am I so passionate about this? Was my mom or my sister or my wife, were they abused? Thank God, no. But I was raised by a truly graceful, decent man. My dad used to say, if my siblings heard it once, we heard it 100 times. The greatest sin a man or woman can commit is the abuse of power. Political, physical, economic, abuse of power. And he'd say the cardinal sin of all was that a man raises his hand to a woman or a child, or anyone raises their hand to someone physically weaker. So I was convinced that if the country actually got a stark and honest look at what happens every day in America, we could begin to change the lives of thousands of women. So I had some brilliant staff. We published a book, A Day in the Life of. We took 365 days of the day of a life of a woman in America and gave actual examples of things that happened, including one which happens not alone. A father putting his daughter's head in a vice in the garage and raping her from behind. Actual cases. We just took 365 of them. And people began to say, whoa. But I knew ultimately we'd have to find enough really, and I mean this literally, truly brave women who would come forward in 1993 and 94 and tell what happened to them. And I remember the two most graphic witnesses were the beginning. There was a young woman, some of the folks who are over 35 will remember, and some of you may remember because it's been covered in the past. She was a beautiful person. She's also a beautiful young model in New York City. And she lived in an upscale apartment complex in Manhattan. And she was in an efficiency. She wanted a one-bedroom apartment. But every time she spoke to her landlord, he hit on her. He hit on her. And so she decided she was going to move out of there. She was on location in the city doing a shoot. She got a call from the landlord saying, if you'll meet me in the bar restaurant, which is part of an upscale place in downtown Manhattan, on the first floor of this apartment complex. It wasn't some seedy joint. You asked her to meet her. It's where she lived. You can sign a contract for a one-bedroom apartment Her name was Marla, her first name. She met with him. He hit on her again, and she got up and walked out. But the coward had hired two thugs who she walked outside, and with razor blades, they slashed her face, cut her face so she couldn't model again. And I went to see her because I knew what she was about to go through if she testified, she should be prepared for. And I asked her a series of questions I had asked permission to ask her in hearing. And she said, okay. She was very poised. She sat there, and I said, what did your mother say? She said, she asked me, why was I in a bar? What do your girlfriends say to you? So and so, and so she named them. She said, asked me, what was I wearing? Did I have on a bra? Did I say anything provocative to him? Think about it. A little college north here called St. Francis. Second young woman to testify. Orientation period for her freshman year. They don't have a football team, they have a soccer team. So there's a bonfire on Friday, an orientation week before the game on Saturday. Cold day like today. So she shows up at the bonfire, and a young man who dated a girlfriend of hers from back where she was from offered to walk her back to her dorm. So she said, okay. He said, can we stop in my dorm? I want to get a coat. Pulled her in the room, his room, and he raped her. I'll never forget what she said. It's emblazoned in my mind. She said, I ran back to my dorm. It was on the 4th floor. I took off my clothes and jumped and took a scalding, I'll never forget the phrase, scalding shower. I was then sitting in the edge of my bed crying with a towel around me, and my RA came in and said, what happened? And I told her. And she looked at me, she said, you've been raped. And I said, no, I haven't. I knew him. No, I haven't. I knew him. And so many others who testified, knowing they'd be vilified by testifying, but the guts to come forward. During those hearings, I realized something else. I started off knowing I had to change the law. What I came to realize is we have to change the culture in this country. I mean, that's not a figurative term of art. Literally, we had to change the culture. Do you all know what the phrase rule of thumb means? For those of you who don't, rule of thumb means, I happen to be a pretty good lawyer and a constitutional lawyer. In the English common law, which our entire system is based on, a woman was viewed as a chattel, just like the horse or the cattle or the sheep. And a man was able to discipline his wife. But so many women were dying in the late 1300s that the English common law adopted a rule that a man could not beat his wife with a rod if it was any bigger than the circumference of his thumb. This is ingrained in our culture. We still have genital mutilation. We still have honor killings. We still have cultural excuses for the abuse of women around the world. I just spoke to the international organization about that. But here in our culture, there's still this embed. My home state of Delaware, which I'm very proud of, I had my staff go back and I had them look at the legislative penalties related to abuse and rape for women in each of these states. We did thousands of hours of research, my staff. Found out in my state of Delaware, before we passed this law and embarrassed them into changing it overnight, There was a law that said, if I leapt out of an alley, not knowing you, and raped you brutally, I could be convicted if convicted of first-degree rape. But if you willingly went out with me on a date, I could not, under any circumstances, even if it was just as brutal, be convicted of first-degree rape. Why? Because implicitly, you must have collaborated in some way. You went out with me. In the state of Texas back then, if my wife came home and found me in bed with a woman, she could leave me, but she couldn't do anything. If I came home and found my wife in bed with a woman, I could shoot him. And it was justified. Written into our laws. And one of the things we've learned now, we can't deny. I asserted it back then, and I shouldn't have because I didn't know, I just felt. That the consequences of abuse of women and some boys and men has long-term chronic problems. Now the Center of Disease Control in Atlanta has issued a report saying women who were abused or raped end up with long-term problems with their immune system, hypertension, post-traumatic stress. What's the difference between a man who comes home 3 times a week and dinner's not on the table, smashes the head of his wife against the wall, and someone out on the downrange in Fallujah being shot at? Now, we're acknowledging. Now we're recognizing it. The good news was, for all the work the Supreme Court said, acknowledged in turning down one part of my law, which allowed a civil rights cause of action, which I think they were wrong about in a split decision, acknowledged we held over 1,000 hours of hearings. The good news was, it's worked by and large. Domestic abuse, after 22 years, has saved lives. Domestic violence is down 64% in the last 20 years. Even though a higher percentage of women are reporting now because they have confidence they will not be re-raped by the system. We have saved, by independent studies, over $12.6 billion in averted social cost, medical cost, costs associated with loss of productivity in the workplace. Many major corporations cooperated with me early on. And now, instead of firing a woman who was abused, who walks in for the 4th time and says, no, I ran into a door jam, gives counsel to that woman instead of firing her. Because the last thing they want to have happen is some crazy lover come in with a gun in the middle of the workplace. They're working with us. Major corporations have stepped forward to give support to police organizations. Now, there are crisis centers and forensic nurse and examiners are in almost every major city in America. SVU units are real. They're in most major cities. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is used by more than 3,500,000 women and men. We were dropping an awful lot of calls because it wasn't sophisticated. So I went to the chairman of the board of all the major tech companies, from Oracle to Cisco to Microsoft, et cetera. And I asked their CEOs to get in the plane and come down with me to Dallas, to the center, for real, because I wanted them to do this for free. I said, I wanted the most sophisticated back office you provide for any bank in the world. I want you to be able to provide that for women. Now, they came down. But I asked, and they're all in cubicles. I've been there a number of times. And I asked them whether they would put one call, just pick one, actual call taking place, put it on a loudspeaker so everybody could hear. I'll never forget the call, nor will any of these CEOs. A woman said, hello, 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 oh my God, oh my God. And she named a mall she was in Minneapolis. She said, I'm standing between Radio Shack and Kids R Us. Oh my God, I see, oh my God, I see him coming. Oh my God, help me, help me. Imagine the courage it takes for a woman locked in the worst prison in the world, her own home, to be able to pick up the phone and call. Think of the courage it takes to say, help me, help me. We now have a system where we can identify where she is. We can immediately up on the screen identify what police cars are nearby there. We can identify quickly what help is available, and we can call, saving lives. So we've done a lot of good work. And I kept really close tabs on all these numbers because it's the proudest thing I've ever done. And I had a woman named Cynthia Hogan who's now taking care of the NFL. You may have read about her. Remember that halfback that beat up his wife in an elevator? And well, if you're wondering about progress, that happened 10 years ago. Nothing would have happened. But guess what? They got smart. They hired my Cynthia Hogan, a brilliant lawyer. No, I'm serious. Changed the dynamic. But what happened is that she was, when I became vice president, the president asked, would I have any, not demands, but was there anything I'd like? I said, I want to bring the entire Violence Against Women office within the vice president's office for me to run it. The Justice Department always ran it, and they're wonderful. The last Attorney General and this Attorney General have been very, very, very supportive because, you know, when you're cutting another person's grass, they usually don't like it. So I get to hire all the major appointments inside the White House so I could watch it every day. So I asked Cynthia to go check on the National Bureau of Justice Statistics what was going on. And 64% and all that. But guess what? And we found out that for girls and women between the ages of 14 and 24, nothing had changed. When I wrote the law, the estimates were 1 in 5 of you would be raped on a college campus before you graduated. That if a young girl was raped, by the time she was 16, the probability was exponentially higher she'd be raped multiple times before she was 30. And guess what? Today the number's the same. No progress. I was devastated and disappointed. I figured if we could change the culture of your parents, what's going on? Why is it still the same? So I did virtual town meetings. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of young women on college campuses and high schools around the country. And I asked one question, for real. I asked them to respond on the internet to me. What one thing could we do to better your circumstance? So I expected better lighting on campus, more campus police, lighting in parking garages, all the things that I thought I knew a lot about. You know what stunned me? It made me feel stupid. I didn't figure it out before. The overwhelming response we got back from young girls and women was, get men involved. Get men and boys in my high school involved. And that's when I went to the president. He and I launched this campaign, It's on Us. A campaign to make it clear that everyone, I mean everyone, from you, Chancellor, from president of every university in America, to the dean of students, to your coaches, to the band director, to the members of the band, to you students, everybody has an obligation to speak out. Because the only way we can begin to change the culture when we stop focusing on the woman and turn the abuser into the pariah on the campus. And so it starts with recognizing, take the pledge. And I'm going to ask any of you who are willing to take the pledge with me. Literally, I'm not joking, to repeat after, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I pledge to recognize that non-consensual sex is sexual assault. To identify situations in which sexual assault may occur. To intervene in situations where consent has not or cannot be given. To create an environment in which sexual assault is unacceptable and survivors are supported. Thank you. You have now joined over 350,000 students. I've traveled all across the country to colleges and universities in every place, to University of Illinois, Ohio State University, the Naval Academy, Morehouse College, Clemson University, my alma mater, Syracuse. I'm heading to UNLV, and my buddy's going to be with me there, and she has a lot of courage. You've heard of Lady Gaga. She's going to be with me there like she was. University of Colorado Boulder, and that's just this week. That's just this week where we're heading. I've met thousands of students on campuses, and the enthusiasm is real. The commitment is real. And I mean from everyone. The guy who introduced me at Clemson was the captain of their football team, challenging his teammates, to Greek leaders of fraternities and sororities who are becoming engaged, to the marching bands at Morehouse, Ohio State, Illinois, Pitt. I don't know if you all have a marching band, but you're a band, right? I'm serious. Because of the leaders on campuses step up. And across the country, students have hosted more than 600 of these events. I went to the Final Four with my wife, but the reason I was there wasn't Syracuse and Villanova. She went to Villanova, I went to Syracuse. The real reason I was there was the NCAA had kept its commitment that they would do public service announcements at every major element of the halftime in the Final Four, where they've gotten famous actors, public officials, folks like Matt, to come with us on their own to make the case from Wall Street to Hollywood, from International Fora at Davos to the State Department. This is being raised up for one fundamental reason. We have to change the culture that allows the abuse of women and men. And it must be clear that no means no. No means no, whether it's in the classroom, in the backseat of a car, on a mall, or in your bedroom, and you start and you change your mind. No means no. Period. And when consent cannot be given, it is assault, it is a crime. Period. And guys, I was pretty active in school. I was a regular guy. I was a pretty good athlete. I know the pressure to not speak out. I know, you know the guys in the locker room. Well, I was out this weekend and I had so, usually the guys who couldn't, anyway. And I know it's sometimes hard to step up. It's physically, by the way. Physically takes courage to step up. My son, who just passed away, highly decorated Major in the United States Army, Attorney General of the state of Delaware, freshman at Penn. Walking up in his co-ed dorm, a guy was coming on to a girl and he pulled him off. That guy was a captain of one of the teams. They made it clear that Bo was going to be a problem. but they didn't count on his little brother to come up and beat the hell out of the captain. You all think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. But my point is, it's not easy. It's not easy. And it's not cowardly. But you got to say something. You got to say something. And look, you girls know. You know your girlfriends are being abused. You know when it's happened. 68% of all victims report their abuse to their roommate. They don't go to the cops. They don't go to the chancellor. They don't go to the university. So for all you women who pray God have not been the victims of abuse, but know someone who is, learn where the help is. Help her. Help her. Engage. Intervene. Help her. Report it. And you guys, I ask the question, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. What would you do if it was your sister? What would you do if you looked and it was your mother? Or your girlfriend? Or your younger brother? What would you do? This is a character test. You have to pass it, and as a nation, we have to pass it. Plausible deniability is culpability. It's culpability. And we can change this. The Department of Education has made clear that colleges and universities have a legal and moral obligation to protect their students on campuses, hold perpetrators accountable, basic things like campus sexual assault climate surveys so they know the scope of the problem that are done anonymously, having safe places for students to go and share what happened to them in confidence and get them the support they need, coordinating with community partners such as rape crisis centers, local law enforcement, women's health centers. That the Department of Education has made it crystal clear that schools that fail in their responsibility are in violation of Title IX. I'm so proud of Arne Duncan and the president for standing up and saying that. And guess what? They risk investigation and could have financial penalties because colleges get billions of dollars in financial aid. And last month, the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., the Office of Civil Rights still has 220 cases investigating 174 college institutions. Many of them are most prestigious institutions in the nation. It's just bad publicity, man. No, not a joke. It's bad publicity. So look, colleges are starting to step up in a way they hadn't before. Men are starting to step up. Women are deciding they have to get engaged with their friends. So let me close with this. As I said, last month I was invited by Lady Gaga at the Oscars, so as she was going to sing her Academy Award nominated song, Till It Happens to You, in The Hunting Ground, if you saw it. I was stunned. I can say this. She's allowed me to say this. I was stunned when I started talking to her. She opened up and it just poured out the emotion about how she was abused. She hadn't talked about it before. How frightened she was. How she didn't know whether she could go on stage and actually sing about it. If you saw the Academy Awards, it was one of the most profound performances. It was all real. I met her mother, her family, her sister. Her performance was riveting. And she said the only way she was able to do it is she walked on stage with 50 courageous young survivors, men and women, who walked on stage with her. A couple of them for the first time, their parents even knowing what had happened to them. There wasn't a dry eye in the house among those very sophisticated audience, and over, I guess, close to 1 billion people watched this. Everyone understood. It's in all of us. I asked that night for people to go to itsonus.org. 50,000 people went and took the pledge. So ask yourself, and I mean this seriously, are you doing enough? Not only to protect women and men who are being abused, are you doing enough to change the culture that asks all the wrong questions? What are you wearing? Were you drinking? Etc. We're seeing that too often today, from pop stars to athletes, professional sports teams, even someone who wants to hold the highest office in the land, it's never, never, never okay to blame the victim. It is never the victim's fault. It may be irresponsible. It's never the victim's fault. No man has a right to raise the hand of a woman for any reason other than self-defense. So we have to ask the right questions. I'm always asked, how will I know when we've succeeded? Well, let me tell you how I'll know. When there's not a single solitary woman who asks herself, what did I do? I'm responsible. And not a single man can with a straight face say, I had the right to do what I did. That's when we will have succeeded, because that's when we would have changed the culture. So folks, it's on you, it's on me, it is all of us to do our part to challenge the cultural norms that are outdated. It's within our power to do that. When every man understands there's no circumstance at all, other than self-defense, to touch a woman, when all survivors are treated with dignity, respect, and understanding, when all our sons and daughters can be free from violence and free from fear, it's on you, it's on me, it's on all of us. And so folks, don't look to your left like that old movie Paper Chase back in my generation. It's been repeated 1,000 times. Don't look to your left, don't look to your right. Look in the mirror. Not a joke. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you being the man you think you are? Are you being a woman of character? Are you living up to the standard that you want to be held by and want others to be held by? I'm confident we can do this, guys. And I'm confident that one of the bases on which future generations will judge how advanced our culture was will be determined by whether or not we've changed the culture where no woman says, what did I do? And no man says, I had a right. I love you guys. Keep it going, please. Thank you very much.